What is JavaScript? Why it is the world's most popular language? What can we do using it? If you have all these questions, then you are in the right place, my friend. I am Akash, you are watching mrabouttech, and without any further ado, let's get started. So let's start with what is JavaScript. As per Wikipedia, JavaScript, often abbreviated as JS, is a programming language that conforms to the Ecmascript specification. JavaScript is high-level, often just-in-time compiled and multi-paradigm. It has curly brace syntax, dynamic typing, prototype-based, object-oriented, and first-class functions. That is a big definition, but don't worry, I'm going to go through all of these things that are mentioned in here one by one. Let's start with high level. So JavaScript is a high level language, and what that means is it is closer to human language, that is English. So the machines don't get that language because they are too binary to get it, right? So they just know the zeros and ones, but we can't write a program in that, so that's why the high level. Then there is just-in-time compiled. Just-in-time compiled means this compiler is used to compile and run a JavaScript program, and we are going to talk about it more in a minute. The next is multi-paradigm. The programming languages can be classified based on programming paradigm. So there are different programming paradigms, and they can be mainly categorized into two different groups. One is imperative, the second one is declarative. Object-oriented programming comes under the imperative category, and functional programming comes under the declarative category. Now JavaScript supports both of these different paradigms, and so that's why it is considered as a multi-paradigm language. The next one is curly bracket syntax. So this just means that we create block of statements by writing curly brackets. Now the next is dynamic typing. So JavaScript is dynamically typed language, and that means the data type of the variable is assigned at the runtime by the interpreter, and the type is associated with the value and not the variable. So while creating a variable, we don't have to write a data type in JavaScript like we do in other languages like C and C++. We just specify a variable, and the data type is assigned to it based on the value at the runtime. So the next is prototype-based object orientation. Now prototype-based programming is nothing but a style of object-oriented programming in which there are no classes and there are just objects. And the inheritance, or as they call it, the behavior reuse, is done as objects inherit directly from other objects. So the objects here can have a hierarchical link between them. So the last one is first class functions. So this just simply means that we can do all the following things with functions, and those are passing functions as arguments to other functions, assigning the functions to variables or storing them in data structures, and returning the functions as value from other functions. So if the language supports these things, which the JavaScript does, and so it is a first-class function language. JavaScript is the language of the browser, that is, you can run it on the client side, and also you can run it on the server using Node.js, which is a JavaScript runtime and is built on V8 engine. Node.js is out of the scope for this series, so we won't be talking about it, but let me shed some light on V8 engine. It is open source JavaScript engine which is written in C++ and is used by Google Chrome and Node.js. It makes use of JIT compiler, which stands for just-in-time compiler, which is what we saw in the Wikipedia definition a minute ago. V8 engine is known for its speed, which it gets from JIT compiler, which is a mix of both compiler and interpreter, which is what makes it so fast. Different browsers use different JavaScript engine, like Mozilla Firefox uses SpiderMonkey. JavaScript core is used by Apple for Safari browser, and so on. Now the question is, why JavaScript? In 2020 Stack Overflow annual developer survey, the most popular programming language is JavaScript. Already we saw that we can use JavaScript on both client side and server side. There are different frameworks like React, Angular, Vue for building interactive web user interfaces. You can even build mobile applications using React Native and desktop applications using Electron.js. These are not the only frameworks, there are many more which you can explore on the internet. The average salary for a JavaScript developer is around 6 lakh rupees per year as per Glassdoor. So now let's talk about the difference between JavaScript and ES6. If you are new to JavaScript, then you must have had the question that what exactly is ES6 and is it different from JavaScript? ES6 stands for Ecmascript 6. So what is Ecmascript? Ecmascript is a scripting language standard. It is a standard for JavaScript. There are other implementations of Ecmascript, but JavaScript is the most popular one. You can say that JavaScript is based on Ecmascript. Its first edition was in 1997, but the most popular one is ES6, which was released in 2015 and is also known as ES 2015. It is popular as it was a big release that came out after 6 years from its previous edition, that is ES5, which was released in 2009. It is popular as it was a big release that came out after 6 years from its previous edition, that is ES5, which was released in 2009. ES6 came with a lot of additions to JavaScript, like new data types, new ways to define variables, arrow function, and much more. We are going to talk about all of these in the coming videos. So the ES6 is the 6th addition to Ecmascript and JavaScript is based on it. I hope that the difference is now clear to you. One more thing that you should know is that this way of having a release once in such a long time is now no more the case, as after ES6 we get a new release every year and the releases are named after that year. So the release for 2021 is ES 2021. This is something which I thought every beginner should know. So for this series I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, which is a free text editor by Microsoft. So you can use this if you want. If you want to use any other text editor, then you can do that as well. But if you're using this, then I'll show you some settings and extensions that I'll be using for this series. So first of all, we just have to go into this extensions section, and here the first extension is the JavaScript ES6 code snippets. So this is the extension that you can search for and install on the VSCode. And as you can see here, there are these triggers. So with these triggers we can autocomplete some of these syntaxes, as you can see here. So this is the first extension. Then the next extension is this one, that is live server. So with this extension, what we can do is we can start a live server and run our code on the browser, and whenever we make any changes in our code, then it will be reflected onto the browser and we don't have to go and refresh every single time. So these were the two extensions. Now we have to make some changes in the settings as well. So I'm going to go into the settings, and here I'm going to search for save. Now here you have to come down to this option where it says autosave, and here you have to select this after delay, and below that you have to set a delay. So whatever delay works for you, you can set it here. So with this we don't have to press Ctrl S every time to save our document, and it is going to be automatically saved after this delay. And as we are using the live server extension, so as soon as our file is saved, then it is going to automatically reload the web page and our content is going to be reloaded. So this will make the coding experience really great. From the next video, we are going to start off with writing some JavaScript. So I guess that is it for this one, and I will see you in the next one.